Hello and welcome to the Fighting Spirit Podcast. As always, I'm Jason and I have a kind of different show here to bring. So I thought about going ahead and doing a retrospective, but honestly, I didn't watch UFC Moscow live and it doesn't feel real appropriate, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go over the picks, but I'm going to throw in a beer review. I bought a 12-pack of Heineken just because I like it. We're going to do a review of Heineken. We're going to go at that. We'll go over the fights. We'll do a nice little combo show. Get a little review out there. Get a little retrospective. Let's get into it. Here's the show. Alright, so this is going to be mostly a beer review, but I just want to throw out there, we went 4-6 on the night for the pure high statistical fights. The numbers do get a little better if I throw some debuts in there, but I don't think they're statistically significant, so I'm just going to stick to my worst numbers. They would actually get improved a bit to going up to, be 6-7 at that point. It's a little close to 50%, but just on the pure high statistical information, I think I'm going to go with that. So, we go in 4-6. Not great, but it is international. It's a lot of unknowns. A lot of guys I'm not really aware of. Zabit looked good. It was really the only fight I really felt fully confident about. I did actually feel confident about Hardy. I just didn't manage to get that one correct. I thought that he was actually going to be able to defeat Volkov due to his explosiveness, but he fought a little more of a slower paced fight. He didn't use his explosiveness, his athleticism, try to pour it on Volkov and maybe potentially gas himself out. So, maybe it was good game plan, just, not executed as well as it could have, considering how much experience Volkov has. And, if you're not going to catch him the way Derek Lewis did, I don't think you're going to beat Volkov, and Greg Hardy was not able to. The other fights on that card, I didn't see. I don't feel right talking about them, but I was happy that some guys did win, even though I called against some guys like Anthony Martin. I was happy to make that call. And one that I was a little bit happy about, too, was Daniel Roberts as well. So Martin, Roberts, and even Ed Herman. I didn't make those calls. I got all three of those wrong, but I like all those guys. Obviously, I don't know the Russian fighters as well. Their numbers just looked good going in, and so I went with them. And, they just did not work out, and that just is what it is. But I said this was going to be a combination podcast, so let's get into the beer review. So I'm going to do a Heineken beer, just simple, straightforward, your ordinary import, really, in Heineken. So if you remember these metrics, we go with the can or the look, we go look at the can or the bottle, we go with the look of the beer once poured, then we obviously do a nose and a taste in the front, taste in the back, and give it an overall score. So let's get into that with this Heineken beer. So if I just look at the can, this is and I did get Heineken in cans. I know it's pretty much synonymous to find it in bottles, but I went with cans, and it's straight up Heineken. Red Star makes me think a little bit of a Soviet thing, but Red Star gives me, the classic green Heineken kind of Christmas color, white lettering. I mean, this is straightforward Heineken. There's nothing about this that makes me think it's anything else. There's other European beers that have, I'm going to say, similar coloring, like Carlsberg, but that's a little less well-known, although could be better than this potentially if you go in and give it a try. But it gives me great information. Gives me a little bit of maybe a snag at the whole Budweiser, Miller, all the corn syrup crap that's been going on. But it tells me straightforward ingredients: water, malted barley, and hop extract. So a little ding, I think, on the hop extract because they're not actually really hopping the beer. But other than that, I mean, it definitely meets the German, not that this is German, but it meets those purity laws by not having any wheat in it, basically. And it tells me, everything that I need to know about it, really. It's I think it's a C+ experience. I don't think it blows your hair back. I think maybe I'm being a little harsh on it because of the fact that Heineken is so common. That I think it could be a bit better, but I'm gonna go 77 or give it a C+. All right, moving on to the actual look of the beer once poured. So, once you pour it out, it's a lager. It has kind of a palish finish. Effervescence has kind of gotten away. It's not really bubbling up like I think it probably should as a fresh beer. But this does come across the pond, the Atlantic Ocean, to me. And it's colored like gold, like straw. It's a little palish. I can basically see through it. I think it cuts the ice just fine. I think it's a perfect B- looking beer. Somebody looks at it, maybe they won't mistake it quite for Miller Lite or Coors, or Coors Light for that matter. But does look like beer. So I think we're gonna go B- on that one. I think it's a very good, fair score. And now let's go ahead and give this a nose. All right. So, one thing with the nose here, I gotta say, is that you definitely get the hop. Now, it says it's a hop extract, but I'm getting a really nice bitter nose, which is good for a European beer, or any beer in general, in my opinion. Just a good, nice bitter nose. Maybe slight hint of metallicness, but really nice overall beer smell. That is something I don't think you always get with an American beer or domestic beer. And I'm talking to the big three. I'm talking your Miller, your Anheuser-Busch, and your Coors. I'm not talking about anything in the micro capacity. Really, the sweet spot for comparison in this is maybe some Canadian beers, obviously your big domestics, and then, if you run into, like I talked about, Carlsberg or some other European beer, I think those are really the only ones you can compare it to. Anything in the craft variety, I think, a lot of ways is better than this, but you got to find it. There's not a lot of people doing a craft lager these days, and it has, started bubbling up here and there. Obviously Brooklyn has their lager, but you don't catch a lot of, craft European style beers. I think it's a little bit underappreciated personally in my perspective. But it smells great, and let's go ahead and give it a taste. All right, so I had this one chilled out pretty nice, and it does have a great, nice bouquet on the palate. When you get it down, there is that metalliciness, and I think that maybe turns off a lot of people to Heineken. It's definitely not from the can. You get the same kind of metallic-y taste in the bottles, but there is a metallic-y bitterness and a really just simple kind of sweetness to it on the back end. It doesn't blow your hair back. It tells you that it's beer. It's not mistaken for anything else, but it is very much down the middle. And I think that it is fair to give this a score of a B- and a B-, I think, overall. And so I think with that overall just B- pretty much across the board, with the exception of the can, which is a little bit hard on it, this gets a B- overall. I think that it is a better beer than most of the domestics. Better than the domestics that you're going to run into, and I really like it. I like this style of beer. For whatever reason, I've just been craving kind of like, this is what I call just kind of like regular beer. It's not pretentious, not something you search out. You don't look for a style, you look for a brand. And that is kind of a curious thing when it comes to beer. Because when you buy craft beer, you're looking for, I think, in my personal opinion, a kind of beer. That's why they have sampler packs. So you can try all these different kinds of beer. You can try a porter, to a stout, to a wheat ale, to a chocolate porter, or something else in that kind of varietal. When you shop the big stuff, you don't shop style of beer. Like, nobody's like, ooh, let me cross Bud Ice with Bud. Nobody's doing that. Nobody's like, ooh, Heineken Light, Heineken. I wouldn't know which one tastes better. People just care about the calories that are in the beer at that point. And so styles of beer doesn't really matter. It's all about the brand. And, I've really just been wanting just kind of that basic beer taste. And that's something I think a lot of the domestics don't always deliver on. I said this to my wife earlier, and I think it kind of categorizes Heineken in an interesting way against the domestics. When you drink a domestic beer, be it Bud, Coors, Miller, if you want to throw the lights in there, that's fine too. If they warm up in any capacity, they are absolute dog shit. If you drink a warm Bud Light because you've been drinking it too slowly on a hot day, you basically need to throw it away. It tastes like piss, and you have to go get a new cold one. When you drink a basic European beer, while it might not be as good as when it's ice cold in the case of this Heineken, in fact, it even says serve at 35 to 40 degrees right on the can, I think that it's palatable and drinkable, not warm. Like, I'm not, like if it's been sitting out in the sun all day, it's not. I don't know if any beer, with the exception of some IPAs, are really drinkable at that point. But as it warms up, it's not complete ass. It's not terrible, and that is something that I think European beer has over American beer. I don't know what that is exactly. Maybe it's the extra hops that allows that kind of bitterness not to taste skunky, and I think that happens a lot when you, especially with like Bud, it's got like kind of a flowery sweetness to it, and it just gets skunky when it's warm, and that's something that European beers just don't quite get as much of. Mine isn't quite ice cold anymore. It's more than or colder than room temperature, but it still tastes good. There are some, I think elements that are coming out that sort of degrade it maybe a little bit from when I first started recording this around, 15 minutes ago. But, it stands up that it is, I think, a little bit higher quality. And so I think a B- is a perfectly good score for a Heineken. This is the kind of beer that I think still has some weird pretensions about it, but it absolutely shouldn't. I mean, this is a good value beer. It's good quality. And, it just happens to be imported. A lot of the craft beer scene is about, beer of the people, democratic beer, everyman beer. But really what they're making is a refined artisanal product. And they don't have the same pretensions as Heineken for whatever reason. I think Heineken is a pretentious beer, and I don't think it should be. I think it tastes like a good, hardworking beer, like beer honestly should taste from the domestics. They just don't happen to hit that mark most of the time. And so I think Heineken should lose some of its, I think, maybe they do try to an extent to lose this kind of pretentious image, but they needs to go for real everyman kind of marketing, because that's what really this beer is, in my opinion. It's an everyman beer. It's a beer for all occasions. You can drink it with your buddies out. Nobody's going to bat an eyelash with you. You can hand it to somebody at a cookout, and they'll probably drink it too. I don't think anybody really goes, Heineken, I don't really. No, I don't think it's that. You hand somebody a Busch, whole different ballgame, in my opinion. I might pass on that, but I would never personally pass on a Heineken. And maybe you feel differently. Maybe Natural Ice and Busch is your, fancy, and go for it. Everybody is a little different, so if you want to have that kind of taste palette, you go for it. I will not stop you. But yeah, solid beer overall. I think Heineken's a little underappreciated at times. If you're a big Heineken drinker, it's solid. If you haven't had a Heineken in a while, I would recommend you go out and try one. It's a good, I think, gateway to some kind of craft beers, because it does, especially pale ales and IPAs, it hits you with some bitterness that if you can get down with that idea, you're going to much more quickly and easily find craft beer than if you're a domestic drinker. If your kick is Miller Lite, if it's Bud Light, to go from, that to even like a Sam Adams, Sam 76 is a real big jump. To go from this Heineken to a Sam 76 to a Rebel IPA to something by Trogs, that's not as big a stretch. And so it's a great gateway beer, I think, for somebody who's trying to get into beer. And pick up some Heineken for yourself. I prefer cans over bottles. I think they, taste a little bit better personally. Also, I like the everyman quality of a can more so than a bottle, but that is up to you. So I hope you enjoyed this. It's kind of a little bit quicker show. I tried to combine the two, and I think it worked out okay. So if you're cool with it, let me know. Maybe I'll try to do more of these in the future. I also considered just doing this live on YouTube and putting my face on it and doing like a off-the-cuff one there. If that's something you guys really want to see too, let me know, and I can switch things up a little bit so that way we can kind of change the show up a little bit. I liked having a beer when we do the podcast, and so, you want to throw a quick review in there, by all means, let me know. All right, so this has been Jason for the Fighting Spirit Podcast. I'm going to be back with some fight picks soon for UFC Brazil. Looks like we're going to go on a little hiatus because we have some, holiday stuff coming up in America, and we'll come back, I think, with UFC 245 at that point. So things are coming fast and furious. We're getting closer to the new year. I'm hoping that Conor McGregor announcement soon comes out, if he's coming back or not in January. I'm really at a shit or get off the pot situation with that guy at this point. And so, let's try to get into the new year. Got maybe 3 title changes coming up at 245. I'm looking forward to it.